Hello, and welcome to Walking and Talking with Mrs. Smith. Hello and welcome back to my channel, but if you're new here, then my name is Mrs. Smith and I'm a Christian, and I usually walk around interesting or scenic locations and talk about all sorts of subjects from a Christian point of view. But today is going to be a little bit different. So today I'm in Leybourne Lakes Country Park in Larkfield near Snodland in Kent in the UK. Leybourne Lakes is relatively new, really. It was created in 2004 and it covers an area of around 230 acres. The country park features a variety of habitats. There are lakes, meadows, wetlands, hedgerows, and plenty of facilities here too, including walking routes and guided trails for visitors of all abilities, and a children's play area close to a cafe, as we've just seen. I'm just going off shot a little bit just because there are some children in front, and there are toilets there as well. There's even a water sports centre offering things like paddleboard sessions, kayaking, windsurfing, scuba diving all year round. So you can bring your dog, and there's blue badge parking too. But I believe it's something like £2.50 for the whole day. And I think if it's a weekend or bank holiday, it might even be £3.50 for the whole day, but I'll need to check that. So today, I have a special guest with me. It's my husband, Reverend Smith, who is a retired Baptist minister and who has very, very kindly agreed to walk with me today and to answer any God, Bible, or Christian related questions from all of our lovely viewers. So hello, Mr. Rev Smith.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me.
You'll be pleased to know, Rev Smith, that after asking for questions from my lovely YouTube community, I had some amazing questions come back to me. This is a bit strange for me because I'm obviously talking to my husband, so I want to call him what I would normally call him. So saying Rev Smith is a little bit weird, which is why I messed up earlier. But anyway, let's get on with it. So our first question today is from Eva. Hi Eva, if you're watching. And Eva has asked a nice easy question to start us off with. Eva asks, which subject matter do you find the most interesting to preach about?
I find that quite hard to answer in a way, although it's a very simple question, basically because I just love the Bible. I like reading it and I like preaching on all of it. But I suppose the key thing for me is what I enjoy doing most is explaining the sort of background and the context to different passages to help people understand it in the respect of how to apply things in our everyday life. What I don't like is when the Bible is just treated as any other document and examined in a sort of an academic way, because it's not that. It's about everyday life. It's about how we relate to each other and to God. And so that's what I like to try and preach about, is to bring the Bible to life for every day.
So it sounds like you really enjoy that side of things, the sort of teaching and preaching side of things.
I do, yeah. And as I said, especially to think about the background and the context and bridging that gap, because let's face it, it was written a long time ago, and sometimes it takes a little bit of thought to think, what does that actually mean? How does it apply to us today?
Okay. So our next question then is from Charlotte. Hi Charlotte, thank you for your question. And Charlotte is asking, why do I need to go to church to be a Christian?
Well, in essence, Christianity and faith is about having a relationship with God, about knowing him through Jesus and through the Spirit. And that, of course, doesn't really need you to go to church. However, that doesn't mean that church isn't valuable. It can be. It's a place to meet with others who share our faith and beliefs. It's a place to worship through song. It's also a place to come together to pray, and we can feel built up in our faith and of course listen to people talking about the Bible and how we apply it to everyday life. So while in essence we don't have to go to church to be a Christian, I think there is a real benefit to going to church regularly. I think it's true to say we would be poorer as believers if we didn't, but it's not really essential in those most basic terms.
Right, okay, that's quite interesting actually, because I think a lot of people who don't believe in God or don't go to church would think that if you do believe in God, that's what you do, you just go to church.
Well, I think that's true for a lot of people, and church is a very valuable thing to do, and a lot of people really enjoy it, and I do. But in essence, faith is about our relationship with God, and that is the most important thing, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, thank you. So our next question today is from Mikey. Hi Mikey, thank you so much for your question, and thank you for all your comments too. I really love reading your thoughts. So Mikey's given a bit of an explanation to his question here. He says, I happened to watch a TikTok with Ricky Gervais being interviewed by Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan said that he knew that Ricky was a self-proclaimed non-Christian, and he asked if Ricky was concerned that that would offend people in the USA. Ricky's response was, I'm a non-Christian, I don't believe in God, I live a good life, but I respect that everyone has their own beliefs, which is more than Christians and other denominations do. So Mikey's question is, why is it so hard for Christians and other denominations to accept each other's beliefs?
That's actually a really valuable question. Just to correct that, I think that when he says other denominations, I think he means other faiths.
Yes.
But I might be misunderstanding that, but I get a feeling that that's what he's talking about. And so I suppose for me, the reality is, I think a lot of people play up the differences between the faiths, where actually I think there is a huge amount of respect and mutuality between different faiths.
Yeah.
Of course, there are people who are extremists, and that's true of Christianity, and it's true of every faith. And sadly, what we see is that those people with more extreme views tend to be the ones that are reported on in the news. Because if you look at the majority, which is people who actually have deep respect for people of any faith, who actually recognise the shared elements like having a strong moral code, being kind and compassionate, being forgiving, being patient with each other, all of those positives we see across all the different faiths. And so I think while there are obviously differences, to recognise those complementary elements is often overlooked in the media. And so often we see that people just dwell on the negatives. And so I think actually there is far more acceptance of people with different views than is sometimes presented, basically because being kind and nice to each other no matter what you believe isn't really newsworthy.
No.
What's newsworthy is disliking each other, hating each other, or slagging each other off because we think something different.
I think just thinking about what you've just said there, also there are people who don't have any faith, don't believe in God, don't go to church, aren't Christians, aren't any faith or religion whatsoever.
Absolutely.
And again, you can have extremists of those.
There's good and bad
and
in
you can
everything.
have fantastic, decent, kind people who don't believe in God too.
Quite right, absolutely true. I think it's a shame in a way that a barrier is put up between faiths that often for most normal people doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yes, we have differing views on things, but actually there's a deep sense of respect for each other. And that's been my experience over many years of ministry, that whether it's different denominations within Christianity or different faiths, people respect that we believe different things, we think differently, but actually there's a huge amount more central that is across the board, whether we believe or not, as you just said.
Yeah, and also there are things like Christians Together. Is it Christians Together?
There's Christians Together, yeah, which covers
Which,
all the different denominations.
so like in a town you would have maybe Baptists and maybe, I don't know, Methodists, maybe Anglicans, whatever, all coming together. So all the different Christian faiths
But
coming
also
together.
equally there are interfaith groups as well.
Yeah.
So where Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists,
Yeah.
Sikhs, Jews all come together and appreciate each other's positives, and there's a wonderfully positive dialogue that goes on. Sadly, it is the extremists that get into the news.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame.
It is.
Thank you for that answer. It was a very full answer. Thank you. Our next question is from Katie. Hello, Katie. Thank you for watching my videos and thank you for your question. And Katie is asking, how do you think being a minister has affected your opinions or your viewpoints?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I suppose I would probably want to say being a Christian, being somebody with strong faith, has had a real effect on me. Being a minister is a role I play, and of course they overlap. There's a strong link there. I suppose the thing for me is I try to recognise that old adage of unless you walk a mile in someone's shoes, you don't know what's going on.
True.
So I try to be balanced, I try to be non-judgmental, I try to be patient and kind and considerate. I have to be honest and say I don't always succeed. I do my best, like we all do. But I try to see things as other people may see them. But at the same time, I do hold strong to my own views. I have a strong faith. I believe in a God who is compassionate and loving. And I suppose I try to play that out in everyday life.
Okay, thank you. Now there is someone streaming, so we're just going to walk past and look at the view for a little while. As you can see, I don't know how well the microphones will pick that up, so I don't want anything that Rev Smith says to be lost in any way.
I seem to remember you saying in a previous talk that you found people gardening wherever you went.
Oh, do you know what? It's so true. I go somewhere and I think, oh, this would be a lovely place to do a walking and talking, and it's all quiet and peaceful. And then as soon as I turn up with a camera and a microphone, all hell breaks loose.
Oh, well, it's just Murphy's Law, as they call it.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something's always going to go wrong if it can.
Okay, so look, we can go on to our next question now, I think, as we're moving away from the strimmer.
Yeah.
He's doing a cracking job, I have to say. Looks beautiful here. So our next question is again from Charlotte. And thank you, Charlotte. And this time, Charlotte is asking, oh gosh, this is quite a theological question.
Okay.
If Jesus is in God and God is in Jesus, did the Romans crucify God as well? If not, at what point did God separate himself from the Godhead? And for those of you watching this who aren't sure what the term Godhead means, the Godhead is God the Father, Christ the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So 3 in 1. Or Godhead can mean the very essence of God, if you like. So, Rev Smith, how would you answer Charlotte's question?
Okay, I mean, that's, to be honest, it's a very crucial and important question, but it's also quite a complex one, and I'll try not to go into too much detail. Instead, I'll try to keep it relatively simple.
Okay, that'll help me as well.
Firstly, I just want to say that God doesn't separate himself from the Godhead. So Jesus is God in human form. There could be no separation. And so when we think of Jesus dying on the cross, yes, in a very simplistic way, we could say the Romans crucified God, because Jesus was God in human form. Jesus was fully God and fully man. And there could
That's
be...
a difficult one to grasp.
It
that,
is,
isn't it?
yeah. And that's why very early in the days after Jesus was crucified, and people were trying to find ways of putting into words what all of that meant and what Jesus had achieved when he went to the cross, they started to play with ideas and thoughts. And one of them was that God left Jesus, so it was just the human being who died and not God. But very early, people started to say, no, that can't be right. And those different viewpoints started to be called what are called heresies, which is against the orthodox understanding or belief. And there's a whole load of different heresies that talk about Jesus and God being separated. God, the Spirit, their creator, and Jesus, the man. Lots of those heresies were named after the people who first suggested them, like Arius became Arianism, Apollinaris became Apollinarianism. But there's also things like Unitarianism, which is the idea of one God and the Spirit and Jesus weren't truly God. But all of those very early on were described as not being correct. They were heresies. And so the creeds that are read in the church, like the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, were created as a way of stating what orthodox, regular, everyday belief is. And that's why many churches use those creeds week by week in their church worship, because they were a way of saying there could not be separation. Jesus, when he was crucified, was God and man. And it was that sacrifice that made what happened on the cross life-changing for all of us, because God made that ultimate sacrifice. But of course that was followed up by resurrection, the power of God. And having that togetherness is absolutely key. There could be no separation.
Right.
Jesus
Okay.
was God and man. And if we try and separate those out, it actually makes what he achieved on the cross have a lot less meaning and power. And for us, they become just a person making a sacrifice. And of course, that's a worthwhile thing, because lots of people do. And, you know,
But it has a different meaning.
Absolutely. Every year we remember people who have sacrificed their lives for a greater good.
Yeah.
But Jesus going to the cross was something different. So no, there was no separation. And any sense of that goes completely against everything the Bible teaches, everything the early church thought, and they spelt it out really fully in those creeds to try and help people understand that although it's a hugely complicated topic, and you explained the Godhead, Father, Son and Spirit, that Trinity, it's an image which we struggle to come to terms with, but that's part of, for want of a better phrase, the mystery of faith. We accept it by faith as the truth that's expressed, even if we don't fully understand it.
Yeah, and that's the hard bit, isn't it?
It is hard, yeah.
Because we don't know everything.
No, but that's where faith comes into it.
Yeah.
And so it is important to state it as a faith statement, like a creed, but I would just come back to the start to say any sense of separation is just wrong. Biblically, theologically, there cannot be that. It goes against everything we believe.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Our next question is from someone who wants to be anonymous, which is absolutely fine. And this question is, what's the point of trusting God if bad things still happen to us anyway?
Oh gosh, that's a huge question, and one that lots of people have struggled with over the years. This idea that, you know, if God can do something, why doesn't he? If he loves us, why doesn't he help us? But I mean, funnily enough, last Sunday in our church, our priest preached on the fact that Christianity is not a promise of an easy life. Our faith in God does not make us immune from the ills of the world. Sadly, bad things happen. Sometimes they're perpetrated by other people. Sometimes it's natural disasters. Bad things happen. That is the way of the world. I think for me, if you didn't believe in God, what would you put those things down to? You'd just say, that's life. It happens. Why do we feel the need to blame God for things? Especially when it's things perpetrated by other people. We should not condemn God for the things people do.
Yeah.
But
I think also, isn't it a lot to do with what you're trusting God for?
that's exactly where I was going to go next.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a really good prompt. Ultimately, we're not promised an easy ride through this life, but we are promised a home for eternity, a home of peace and tranquility, and that, I believe, is what we trust God for. We trust God for those eternal promises and accept that sometimes, as we go through life now, we will face adversity. But from my own personal perspective, I think facing challenges, trusting God, suddenly makes everything seem easier and more possible than just trying to find a way through on your own.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, I mean, because for me personally, I don't, you know, if I'm going to go out for, I just let these lovely people pass. If I'm going to go out for, you know, a walk on my own late at night, I'm not going to trust God to keep me safe because, you know, bad things happen to everybody in this world.
Absolutely.
The Bible doesn't say if you become a Christian, you'll never be hurt again. We still go through exactly the same things as everybody else. It's just that God helps us through them. So for me, my trust in God is for my salvation, for, you know, what happens to me when I die. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, and for me, my faith has helped me to face up to the challenges of life. When I've gone through tough times, it is my faith that has helped me get through them. I've never felt a sense of wanting to blame God for it, or why does this happen to me?
No.
I'm just aware that bad things happen in life. Some things
To
are
everybody.
awful, and you
matter
look
what.
and we plead with God. I mean, we pray constantly, asking that God would help us and others to get past those challenges and do our best in life. But the reality is, bad things happen. That's part of life, and it has certainly, for me, never hindered my trust in God, as you said, for my eternal salvation, or that he's with me in the midst of those challenges as well.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So we have one more question.
Okie dokie.
I actually think this might be for me, but you can answer it as well.
Okay, fair enough.
So our last question for today is from Louise. Hello, Louise. Thank you for your question. Louise, as I said, is asking a question to me, I think, but you're welcome to answer it as well. And she's asking, where is your favourite place to walk and talk, or walk and think?
I think that second part's for me.
Yeah, maybe. I think for me, walking and talking for YouTube videos, I like to go anywhere beautiful or interesting, preferably a bit quieter, with maybe a bit of history attached to it. But if I'm just walking and thinking on my own, then I like to be by the sea. I think there's something for me about walking by the sea that just seems to blow the cobwebs out of my head and help me to think things through. You know, the sound of the sea I also find really calming as well. What about you, Rev Smith?
I would kind of agree with that. For me, I suppose being near water is what I love. When I need time to just think things through. So whether that's by the sea, I do thoroughly enjoy walking along a seafront, or to be equally fair, I love walking along a lake or a river. So water I find very calming. It's very tranquil.
We're quite
and
similar in that,
for
aren't
me, yeah. And I suppose ultimately, I just want to be somewhere where there's not too many people, not too many distractions,
Yeah.
where it's quiet and
Yeah.
peaceful. So yeah, and water is a key one for me, I must admit.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, I mean, that's all the questions for today, but I just want to say a massive thank you to Rev Smith for agreeing to walk with me today and to try and answer all of those questions. I think you did a sterling job. Thank you.
No problem at all. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, well, maybe we can do a part 2 at some point.
Of course, be happy to.
So that's it for today, folks. But if you have enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you like my videos generally, then please do subscribe to my YouTube channel. I think there's just under half of the amount of people that watch my videos that are not subscribed. And subscribing would really help me, because the more people subscribe, the more my videos go out to more people and more people see them. And then, you know, I can have a wider audience, and that is what I'm trying to do, really. So please, if you can help me out, that would be fantastic. But again, thank you so much for watching. If you stayed with us this far, and it's a longer video than normal, so I apologise for that. But Rev Smith does go on a bit sometimes.
Yeah, sorry.
But thank you so much for watching. God bless you all, and I will see you next time. Bye from me.
And from me.
Bye.